everybody. Hi, Kenneth. Hi, Corvus. Hi, Lori. Welcome to our Thursday evening Torch Thursday tutorial stream. I was just a little bit delayed because I totally just made a kitty battle video and posted it to Instagram. I'm not going to lie. I finally figured out how to make TikTok videos or TikTok style videos, Instagram reels, whatever you want to call them. It's fun. It's really fun. Also, you can do it with a cat on your lap. So I will post the kitty battle video to Discord after this broadcast, and also to TikTok and to Facebook. But if you want to find that right now, I did just post it on our Instagram. That is Beading Dreams. But welcome to Torch Thursday. We're going to be doing this project today. This is our granulated Anticlastic ring. And this is actually a really fun project that involves a gracious plenty of tools, which means that I am probably going to be getting up and getting... Hi, Barb! How are you? Yeah, I'm probably going to be getting up and getting tools. Okay, well that's fair. But I can also get up and get things. But it's been a minute since I've done a tutorial that involves this much stuff. So as far as supplies go, what do you need for tonight? Supplies, not a lot. You are going to need this, and this. Okay, so you're going to need some, I love how I grabbed that and I didn't actually grab it. There it is. Okay, you're going to need some 24 gauge sheet metal. And here is a trick. You can get 24 gauge sheet metal pre-cut from Rio into a 3/8 inch strip, or you can take your just 3x3 or 3x6 or whatever size sheet of 24 gauge sheet metal you have, and you can cut it to whatever width you want. Obviously this is the easiest solution, but it doesn't give you a whole lot of options because you only get the one size. Which is going to be fine for my tutorial tonight, but you can vary this if you want to by using your own sheet metal, cutting it to whatever size you want. But what I have right here is 24 gauge sheet metal that's pre-cut into a 3/8 inch strip from Rio Grande. That's what I'm going to be using tonight. You are also going to need some bezel wire or fine silver wire or fine silver casting grain. Okay, so the reason we're using fine silver for this is because it balls up much more nicely and cleanly than sterling silver. So I am a fan of fine silver bezel strips, so that's what I use for all my setting. So I just have my coils, and typically I'll take whichever one is fullest and just chop off some of that to use to make my granules. And then you're also going to need some extra easy sterling silver solder. You could use easy as well, but I'm going to use extra easy because I have, again, my small butane torch. As far as tools go, it's a soldering class. You know that there's a lot of stuff you're going to need, and if you are a person who fabricates already, this is probably stuff that you have already staged in your work area. But your tools for tonight are going to include but are not limited to a torch. I have a Blazer butane torch, my favorite brand. Love this baby. Some kind of soldering surface. I've got a solderite board. You could also use a fire brick or a charcoal block. You're going to need metal shears. You're going to need pliers, round nose, chain nose, and wire cutters. You're going to need various hammers, once again, including but not limited to chasing hammer and a household hammer. You're going to need a bench block, okay, so something dense that you can hammer on, and you're going to need a dapping punch that is fairly big. So I have all my dapping punches here. I'm going to pick which size I need once I've actually constructed the circle for my ring. And you're also going to need tweezers for hanging on to hot stuff, and I'm going to tumble my project, but if you want to actually finish it off tonight, you would need pickle pot, and some fine steel wool. So what I'm actually going to start with is making my ring band, and then I'm also going to make my granules. And so that means I'm also going to need that. I need my solder pick, And yeah, need pliers. BRB.
No pliers over there. Oh goodness. That's okay. I see them. Okay.
Okay, and ring mandrel. That's a tool that I didn't talk about, but that is a tool that we're gonna need. So let me move my soldering stuff out of the way for the moment. I'm gonna make my ring band. So I'm gonna go ahead, and this one tends to turn out a little bit on the small side. So I'm gonna go ahead and I wanna make a size 8 ring because I think that's what's gonna fit me best. As you know from working with wire, wire's gonna spring up when you bend it around a mandrel. So I wanna go up about 3 sizes, so to a size 5, and that's actually where I'm going to bend my wire to make my ring mandrel. And really, thank you. Take your device not available and stick where the sun don't shine. So I've got my size 5 on my ring mandrel, and I've got my strip metal, so I'm just going to hold that like so, and I'm going to wrap it around, and I want to make sure that I overlap it, okay, because size 5 is not the size that I want. So I want to make sure that I have extra metal so that I can make this the size that I want. Okay, so I've got it overlapped, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to let it go. So you'll notice, see how loose this is now? This is what I mean about the fact that metal will spring up. Like I bent it around a size 5, but it's definitely not a size 5 anymore. It's a little bit bigger. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just push it down until I get to a size 8, which is a size that I actually want. Then I'm going to grab some kind of marking device. Go ahead and scribe it with a center and punch. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark a line that goes from here to here. So what this is doing is it's giving me my accurate size, and it's giving me a place where my metal is nicely curved on both sides. So I'm just going to go ahead and scribe that line. Make sure I can see it. Alright, and then I can take it off my mandrel, and I'm not gonna need that for a little while. I'm gonna take my wire cutters and I'm gonna cut that at my scribe lines. Now, when you're cutting, don't forget your cutter has a flush side, which is the flat side, and it has a non-flush side, which is the side that when you squeeze it together looks like a V. So you want the flat side, the flush side, towards what is remaining. And you're going to cut right on that line that you scribed. I can cover my metal, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So I've got this other line right here that I scribed. I'm going to do that same. Okay, there it is. I'm going to do that same cutting. So flat side towards what's remaining, and snip. What are you looking for? What are you looking for?
Me?
Yes.
I'm packaging.
Oh.
Packaging dragons.
Got it. Okay, so there we go. Now we're going to take our file, and you can see that the edges on these where I cut are not completely flat. So what I need to happen is I need to be able to solder this together with a smooth seam, and that is not going to happen with these edges looking raggedy like they are. So this is where our file comes in. Yes, I know everyone hates to file, but guess what? It's inevitable, inescapable, and it's going to help you make your soldering better. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to file these edges so that they are flat and will line up nicely so that I can solder them together. Now note that your file bites on the push only if you have a single cut file, so don't saw it back and forth like you're used to when you're filing your nails. Just go ahead and push it, lift it up, bring it back, push it forward again. Now you got to make sure when you're filing that you're not giving yourself a cattywampus sort of line here. So I'm going to fit this together in just a minute and we're going to see how it goes. But first I'm going to file the other side. Good night. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. All right, so we are going to take this and we're going to tension fit this. So what that means is that I'm going to move my edges past each other and then I'm going to bring them back so that they meet, and then I'm going to use my chain nose to kind of line everything up, and we're going to see if I actually have a solderable joint. Now, considering that we are going to be putting significant pressure and stress on this joint after we've soldered it, you really do need to do a good job here. Like, you can't have a half-assed joint, excuse my French. Like, you really have to have a good clean joint that's soldered all the way along its length. Okay, so that's a pretty decent tension fit right there. And so now we're going to go ahead and we're going to set this aside and we're going to grab our soldering stuff. And I have thoughts on that, Heather.
Okay.
So I'm going to grab my soldering stuff. And I'm going to take my bezel wire and I'm going to cut some pieces of my bezel wire. So I'm going to cut a few fairly uniform pieces so that I can get some fairly uniform granules. So I'm going to cut about 1.5 inches per piece, and this is, once again, fine silver bezel wire. And I'm not going to do too many granules because it's a tutorial and I don't need to be super showy. So I'm just going to go for 3, maybe 4. Let's do 4. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and 1 more for 4. So I'm going to start by turning these pieces of bezel strip into granules, which basically just means I'm going to melt them until they turn into little spheres. And then I'm going to put them on my other soldering board to cool. Just want to make sure I've got my tweezers handy. Okay, so for those of you who haven't soldered in a while, don't forget, you can type !safety into the chat to get a link to our 5-point soldering safety lecture. If you're going to do this in your own home, please consult professionals in the safety field. Don't set your house on fire. Don't set your children on fire. Don't set your cats or dogs on fire. None of this is the desirable outcome. So if you are going to have a soldering studio in your own home, make sure you observe proper safety precautions. For now, we're going to go ahead and melt these babies. So I've got my butane torch, which I did just fuel up. And I've got my pieces of wire. So I'm just going to light my torch. And I'm going to start heating one of them. And this is actually a pretty fun process because it's just going to, see, it's just going to kind of go. Now, this happens sometimes where I have this like detached melted bit. I'm just going to set it back on top of the wire so that it'll all melt together. But yeah, it'll just kind of go from the end and squidge up into a little ball, which is pretty fun. Once again, these balls have become detached from each other, so we can just kind of grab them and marry them back with the mothership there. Alright, once I have created a successful granule. I'm going to let it cool to the point where it's not going to misshape when I pick it up. And then I'm going to grab it. Oh dear. See, and you want to grab it before it gets stuck to your solder board, which I obviously did not do. So there, you want to make sure it's not stuck to your work surface, and then put it aside to dry. Now we're going to repeat that 3 more times. So once again, I got some separated granules. It's actually okay, because I don't think I'm going to have an issue with having granules that are different sizes. I think that's actually going to be kind of fun. So I'm going to put that one over there, and this one. Also going to put that over there. Make sure it doesn't have any schmutz on it. I see schmutz is trying to take a ride. I'm going to burn that off. Alright, 2 more. I'm going to just heat this till it melts. Go. So those are a little warm. Okay, so 1 more granule, which we're going to make with this, and then we're going to solder our actual ring together. It's pretty fun. I like melting things. Who doesn't like melting things? See? Everyone likes melting things. Even Heather.
Even me.
The fire is not scary, Corvus. The fire is your friend. It loves you. Okay, so now we're going to take that ring blank that we fit a minute ago. And we're going to go ahead and solder this closed. So what I have is I've got my ring blank. All right, and there is my, that's hot, there's my joint right there. So I'm going to take my flux. Flux is, for anybody who is not familiar, it's a chemical. And what flux's job is it is to keep your metal from oxidizing so that your solder will flow on it. So it's really hard to solder without flux, hard meaning almost impossible. So I use Handy Flux, my favorite brand, because it's easy to use and it's cheap. So I'm going to go ahead and flux. So you just apply it with a crummy paintbrush. I'm going to go ahead and flux that joint. So just make sure I've got a good coating of flux on the inside and the outside of that joint. And then I need some solder, which is great, except I don't remember where I put my solder. There it is. So I'm going to cut myself a decent sized piece of my extra easy solder. So this is a solid, 3/16 of an inch of solder. I'm going to take my solder, I'm going to set it on my solder board. So my solder right now is right there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ring and I'm going to take the joint that I just flexed and I'm going to set it right on top of the solder, like so. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat that until that solder sucks up into that joint and bonds my ring together. So you got to heat the whole thing, otherwise your metal's going to be acting as too much of a heat sink. Your solder's not going to flow. Once the whole thing is warm, you can concentrate on your joint, and there we go. So just draw that solder right up, and we're done. So my joint is now soldered closed, and I'm going to set that on my bench block to cool, by which I mean I'm going to drop it on my table and make my entire store smell like a campfire.
Woo!
Yeah, but that wasn't the intention, though.
But I like campfires.
Well, campfires are great, but that still wasn't the intention.
Okay.
So once this is cool, we're going to go ahead and form it. So let's talk for just a second about Anticlastic and Anticlastic. So basically, Anticlastic is a dome, Anticlastic is a valley. So Anticlastic basically means you're taking the edges, you're bringing them out farther than the center, so you're making kind of a U shape. Anticlastic would be an inverted U shape. So I like Anticlastic forming personally because I think it's fun. And what I'm going to do to start my Anticlastic forming, I'm going to do most of it with my chasing hammer, but I'm going to do the first little bit of it with a dapping punch. So what I want to find is a dapping punch in my set of dapping punches that is bigger than my ring. I am going to have to re-round my ring, but I want to make sure that it's significantly larger than my ring. So I want to make sure that when I put my dapping punch on my ring, that the punch itself is not actually hitting the metal. So for instance, this, good. This, bad. Okay? You do not want your punch to be hitting your metal. Okay, now that this is cool enough that I can touch it, I'm going to real quick grab my ring mandrel back and re-round this. So I'm just going to take that, I'm going to press it down on my mandrel, and then I can use a rawhide mallet to just tap that, make sure that it's nice and round. And since your mandrel is a cone rather than a cylinder, go ahead and flip it over, do the same thing on the other side. So what I should have when I'm done is an actual circle rather than a weird misshapen ovoid like it looked when I was done soldering it. I'm going to take my ring, my bench block, my dapping punch, and I'm just going to go ahead and tap my dapping punch a little bit. And what that's going to do is it's going to start flaring out the top of my ring. So see how that's flared? Now, this seam here is going to be mostly hidden once you're done with your ring, but this seam here is not. So if you want to, you could definitely spend some time with some sandpaper cleaning up this joint here. Since I am going to go ahead and try and get this tutorial done sort of on time, I'm going to skip that step, but you can take your 320 grit sandpaper in there and then a couple other grits, finer and finer and finer, because this joint here is actually the one that's going to be visible on your ring. Again, this one is going to be mostly invisible. So that's my dapping punch that I used to flare the top. I'm just going to flip that over, put that side down, and then use my dapping punch to flare the other side. So what we have here is kind of like a base for a spinner ring, where you would have put a couple of bands on here and then done the flaring. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my chasing hammer to bring this down to that Anticlastic kind of really tight U shape. So what I want to do is I'm going to take my chasing hammer and I'm just going to encourage this metal to continue to go in the direction that it's going. Don't hit your fingers because it's going to hurt. But I'm just going to gently, and when I'm tapping, I'm kind of tapping and pulling outward a bit to sort of encourage that metal to come down and start making our anticlastic form. Okay, so you can see how much more that has flared with my hammering. Now I'm going to flip that over. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So the whole idea here is to, make this kind of channel shaped ring, and it can get a little wonky, as you can see. So you can use your mandrel to reshape it. It's a little bit difficult though, because obviously it's not flat anymore. But I definitely will use my mandrel and my mallet as a way to kind of keep my circular shape. So what I've got here is my ring's going pretty well, except for right here. It's a little bit wonky. So I'm just going to take a second, sort of work through that. The area around the solder joint always tends to be the most difficult. So sometimes that takes a little bit of extra work. Now I've managed somehow to get this extra compressed right here. That's probably going to be a problem for me later. So I'm just going to find a chain nose pliers and I'm going to pull that back out a little bit. So see how I just kind of have that a little bit too folded in? I'm just going to pull it back out so that's a little bit more, there we go, so that it's at more of the angle of the other ones. Okay, and then I'm just going to keep forming this until I've reached my desired amount of curve. Now, the important thing here, if we're doing the granulation, if you're not doing the granulation, then you do you. Whatever you want is fine. But if you're doing the granulation, it's gotta fit in there. Okay, so you gotta make sure that you don't crunch it down too much. You can always pound it down a little bit more after you've got your granulation in there, but it's a little bit harder to open it back up. And this is what I meant by this seam right here is going to be super visible. So once again, if you want to spend some time with some sandpaper and fix that, you are absolutely welcome to do so. So I've somehow managed to get down to 3 granules on my board, which is fine. So I've got these 3 granules over here, and these are what I'm going to solder into my ring. So I'm going to figure out where am I going to solder these, and also how am I going to solder these. How am I going to solder these? I'm going to use my third hand, and that's going to help me hold my ring. So that's just my little weighted base with my cross-locking tweezers. I typically like to solder a ball over the joint because it helps to hide it. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to start by soldering over my joint. So I'm going to put that in my third hand. So that's facing upwards. I'm going to flux where I want to solder my little granule. And I'm going to grab my easy solder, or sorry, extra easy solder is what I'm using. And I'm going to grab a piece of that, small piece. I'm going to go ahead and use my tweezers to drop that right where I want to solder my little granule. Then I'm going to heat that until it flows. This is called sweating my solder. And as you can see, my solder kind of migrated. So once I can see, I'm going to move that back to my joint. I'm going to heat that till it flows. And then I'm going to take my granule, drop it on there. Oh, come on. Okay, you won't fit. Let's use the smaller one. There we go. And then I'm going to heat again. Hi, Smee. I'm going to heat again until that granule solders onto my band. So I just want to wait till my solder reflows and bonds that granule on there. And you can tell by kind of like you can see the movement of the solder in that band. So now I've got 2 more to go. This one's a little big, so we'll see. But I'm going to carefully, this is hot, so don't touch it. I'm going to rotate it about 1/3 of the way around. A little bit more flux. See? Hot. I told you. A little bit more solder. And I'm going to drop that on there. And then once again, I'm going to sweat the solder onto my ring. I'm going to try this bigger granule because I think this might be a little wider of a spot. So I'm just going to heat that until that solder flows. And then we're just going to drop that granule on there. Perfect. I'm going to reheat that until once again that granule solders on. Ta-da! Okay, and then one more rotation because we've got 1 more granule. Once again, this is all hot, so don't touch it with your bare hands. All right, I'm going to take this spot right here as a good resting place for that final granule. So again, flux and solder. Right? I don't think it was smoke in the lungs, Corvus. I think it's still allergies in the lungs. It's not really the lungs so much as just like the sinuses. I swear the postnasal drip is horrifying. Okay, so I'm going to heat that. Oh, really? You just did that. Just totally kicked my solder off. Oh my gosh. Alright, I'm going to set that there. Oh my Lanta. This is why I pick transfer most of the time, y'all, because I can't aim for anything with the tweezers. The fact that these tweezers barely pick anything up is also a problem. Okay, so there we go. So now we're going to go ahead and sweat that solder onto our ring. And I'll get my final granule here. And once that solder flows, we're going to drop that granule on there, make sure that it is seated where you want it, and then heat until that solder flows. Now, you can make these granules of a different metal. The ring that I actually have posted as the sample photo, the granules are 10 karat gold. So they don't have to be fine silver. Just doing an all silver ring is a good way to kind of get your feet wet in this technique, but you absolutely can incorporate 14 karat gold. You could incorporate copper. There's a whole lot of different options that you could do. All right, so I'm just going to set that aside for a second to cool. Theoretically, I'm done with my soldering, so my soldering stuff can go back where it lives. Also, y'all, I seriously do not know what I did to my knee while sleeping on the couch, but it is even angrier today than it was yesterday. Like, I woke up this morning, my left knee is like 1.5 times the size of my right knee. So have no idea how the heck I managed to injure my knee so badly by just sleeping on the couch, but I did because I'm talented like that. So yeah, I spent pretty much this entire morning with a bag of frozen corn on my knee, making TikTok videos, which is why there's now a TikTok video of my cats out there. And also, I will post on Discord as a bonus for those of you who follow us on Discord. If you need the link to Discord, type !Discord into the Twitch chat. One of the funny... Oh my god! Hi, Raiders! Welcome in! Oh my gosh! Play in the mud! Welcome, welcome! How are y'all? What have you guys been doing? Welcome to the Beading Dream stream. We're so happy to have you all. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yay, Raid! Woohoo! Awesome! So welcome Raiders! Welcome in! How's it going? Oh my gosh, so where did y'all came from? Play in the mud. So what were y'all doing? What kind of stream are y'all? Are you crafty or what are you doing? Are you actually playing in the mud? Because that actually sounds like fun. We are currently playing with fire here on the Beading Dream stream. And so, welcome! So what's going on, y'all? What were y'all doing? I am making a ring. I'm working on making a ring. So we're a beading stream. We're a fabrication stream. Oh my god, 100 mugs? That's amazing. I haven't even made one ring yet tonight. I'm working on it. Full-time potter out of Nashville. That's awesome. Yes, Heather loves Nashville. Heather's family has a home in Knoxville. So yay, Tennessee. Go Vols. I also dated a guy in college. He was from, he actually lived, he lived outside of Andersonville, if any of y'all Tennessee people know where that is. The closest, like, medium-sized city was Oak Ridge, and the closest big city was Knoxville. But I love Tennessee. Though as a lifetime city girl, the first time he took me out to his parents' property, which was 80 acres, like, outside of Andersonville, which is basically the middle of freaking nowhere, I legitimately had a panic attack. And I was 18, so I didn't even know what a panic attack was at that point. But I was like, but there were no, but anyone, they could murder us and no one would know. Like, it was such a weird concept for me. But welcome in. Play in the mud. That's amazing. Thank you guys so much for rating us. Okay, so what are we doing here on the Beading Dream stream? So we're working with fire, and we're working on this ring. So this is what I call the Granulated Anticlastic ring. So it's basically starts out as a strip of sheet metal, 24 gauge sheet metal. I'm using sterling silver today. So we took our sheet metal, we made a circle, soldered that closed, and then made our little granules. So the granules are these little bits. Hey, if I could get my windows in order, that'd be great. Whoa, nobody cares. Plug-in store, go away. So yeah, so the granules, fire is awesome. Though Corvus was saying the fire sounded scary, but I like fire. Fire is fun. So the granules are these little bits here. And so what I did to make those is I actually melted pieces of fine silver bezel strip. We soldered the ring, we formed it using dapping punches and hammers, and then we actually solder the granules on. And now what I'm about to do at the conclusion of the project is I'm going to go back in with my chasing hammer and I'm going to finish the forming of that ring. So basically, I'm going to take my chasing hammer and I'm going to just keep kind of curling these edges over to make more of my U-shaped anticlastic ring. You didn't see that. That didn't happen. That was a bad solder joint. Since it's an online tutorial, we're just getting right on past that bad solder joint and go with, yeah, 2 balls. We've got a 2-ball ring for y'all tonight. The 3rd ball decided to take a sabbatical. Sabbatical? What's it called when a ball takes a sabbatical? Sabbatical. There we go. See, I'm lucky I have clever people on my stream who are not me. Okay, so I've got most of my anticlastic forming done now. So it's kind of organic, which I really, really love. What I actually could do, since I lost a ball, I am 1 ball down. What I could actually do if I wanted to is I could do like a tube setting, set a stone or something in there, which would be fun because right now it just kind of looks like it has eyes staring at me. I don't know that I love the fact that it looks like I see the ring and the ring sees me. Like, I don't know how I feel about that. But I do like this anticlastic look. So you will probably notice, all of my viewers now, that this metal looks really freaking ugly. Like, it does not look pretty at all. So what have we got going on with our metal right now? So what have we got is we've got our flux, which keeps our metal white, but then we've got some fire scale / oxide. That's what happens when we heat our metal. And then we got some of this red stuff. This is what happens with our flux when it takes up more heat than it can stand. So right now what I have is a piece of metal that is supremely unattractive. How do I fix this? Because obviously nobody or most people don't want to wear this. So there are a couple of ways to clean this metal. The easiest way, and the way that takes way longer than we have on stream, is to just take this whole thing and chuck it in a tumbler. So I have a vibratory tumbler. It's basically a medium-sized dish that goes and it's full of stainless steel shot. What are you laughing at?
That was amazing.
Oh Lord, I feel like somebody's gonna clip that, and I'm gonna regret doing it.
Yeah.
But so it's basically a medium-sized vibrating bowl that's full of stainless steel shot, and you can throw your metal in it, and the action of the shot bashing against your metal will actually clean and polish it. Now, there is kind of a myth out there about tumblers that they also work, harden, and strengthen your metal, and okay, I don't have a degree in metallurgy. I'm just a self-trained metalsmith, but in my experience, a tumbler's not going to substantially strengthen your metal. But what it will do is it'll polish it with no effort on your part. All you need to do is chuck it in there, let it run for like 12 hours, and yes, I know that's way longer than your instructions say it should run. Who cares? And you'll pull it out. It'll be shiny. It'll be beautiful all the way around. You won't really have to do anything except for wait. If you are not the waiting type, or you don't happen to have a tumbler, you can take this ring, this gross, disgusting, dirty silver ring that I just made. You can put it into a solution called pickle. Pickle's a weak acid solution. Most people use a pickle called Sparax. I prefer citric acid. You can also go completely natural with vinegar and salt 1:1. You do want to heat that, so keep it in a crock pot. Heat it when you're using it. When you're not using it, turn it off, unplug it, cover it, put it away. Do not leave it plugged in all the time. Heather can regale you with tales of what happens when you leave your pickle pot plugged in overnight. And yes, it's a terrible smell, and it's also really ugly. But you can pickle it. The pickle will pull all this crap off of there and leave you with a finish called pickle white. So the pickle white is then something that you can buff with steel wool in order to polish it to shiny. What I'm going to try to do is I'm going to see how much of this crap can I buff off with just my steel wool. So I am basically, I'm shortcutting, I'm skipping several steps, And I'm going to see how nice I can make this ring look with just my steel wool. This is fine steel wool. This is quadruple zero steel wool. You're going to find this in the paint section of your local hardware or big box store. Even at Walmart, it's by the paint. So quadruple zero steel wool. So you can see it's actually done a pretty good job of cleaning up this part of my ring. Now, those of you who are raiders and came in at the end, I did bring attention earlier to this joint right here, okay? This is our solder joint from where we soldered our ring closed, and I did point out that it's going to be really visible on the top edge and the bottom edge. So if you wanted to take some time with some different grits of sandpaper, you can absolutely make that joint less obvious. And it's going to take more time than I have tonight, but what you want to do is start with something like a 320, and then you want to up your grits successively until you've basically sanded that seam into oblivion. So that's one of those kind of finer detail points that isn't super exciting to witness on stream, but if you want to have a really nice clean piece, that definitely is something that you want to consider. Now you could also, if you have power tools handy, you absolutely could buff this with a Dremel and a buffing wheel, or flex shaft and a buffing wheel. I will say, as a quantifiably lazy person, I'm a huge fan of tumbling, because what the tumbling is going to do for you that your other buffing methods are going to not do so well is it's going to get the inside of this, it's going to get the outside of this, it's going to get the inside of the band. But again, if you don't have a tumbler, steel wool, sandpaper, Dremel tool, pickle, these are all really, really good tools to have at your beck and call. And then once again, you can decide, am I happy with the way that this looks? Am I not happy? Honestly, for me, I really think I need to see it polished, so I'm going to go ahead and throw it in the tumbler, and we'll check on it tomorrow during our freeform stream and see how it looks. I also really have a feeling that I want to put a gemstone there. So, yeah, so there we go. Because once again, right now it just looks like it's staring at me, and I don't love that. So, those of you who are regular stream viewers and those of you who are raiders, I will revisit this ring tomorrow at 6 p.m. on our Freeform Friday stream. I'm going to see if I'm going to throw it in the tumbler. I'm going to let it polish overnight. I'm going to see if maybe I want to add a stone. Do I want to do any more forming? Do I want to take my Dremel in and try and work with those lines and try and get them to be less obvious? There's also a teeny tiny split. Yes, you see it? There's a teeny tiny split right there at the end of that seam. So I'm going to see maybe what I want to do about that. So tomorrow is going to be about power tools and hammers. So those of you who are new to our stream, well, welcome, and we are so happy that you rated. We absolutely love raiders, and we're so grateful for each and every one of you. We do have a Discord. If someone wants to type !Discord into the Twitch chat, that's going to give you the invite to our Discord. We on the Beading Dreams stream like recipes. We like pets, and we like shiny things. We also like fossils, which tend to be referred to by the general shorthand of dead stuff. We love fossils and bones and all of those cool things. So we're a wonderful, weird group. If anybody wants to join us, please go ahead and join our Discord. We would love that. We stream, thank you, Corvus. We stream, we're switching to a new streaming model next week. So starting next week, we're going to be streaming Wednesday at 6 p.m. with a tutorial, similar to what I did today, but no torches. And yes, there are also dead toads on the Beading Dreams stream. Not actual dead toads, but representations of dead toads because of a really bad decision that I made involving my car in my driveway probably 2 years ago. Stick around, eventually you'll hear the story. But so our new streaming schedule starting next week is going to be Wednesday, 6 p.m. we will be doing a tutorial stream. That one will be not a torch stream, but actually like just a beads and wire or fiber arts tutorial. Thursday is always going to be a torch tutorial at 6 p.m. Friday is going to be alternating either a Zoom crafty cocktail hour or a freeform Friday. That's tomorrow. So once again, tune in tomorrow night at 6 p.m. to see how I finish this ring on freeform Friday. And then Saturday, this Saturday is going to be our last Saturday tutorial. So I do have a tutorial this Saturday, followed by a live merchandise sale. And then from here on out, it's going to be live merchandise sales 6:30 every Saturday. So all my raiders, we would love to see you back on the Beading Dream stream again. So the next time I'm going to be on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream, I'm going to be finishing this ring tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. in our freeform Friday tutorial. And then Saturday we will have a knotting tutorial followed by a sale of shiny gemstones. So everyone, thank you so much for joining us. Again, we can't tell you how much we appreciate each and every one of you. And hopefully we will see all of you raiders, or some of you raiders, back on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dreams soon. I promise there are shenanigans that also happen on this stream. That usually happens when Heather and I are on stream together, so that's typically the sales. So, you know, it's not all just learning. There's absolutely jokes and craziness that happens. So join our Discord, and we'll keep you updated on our streaming schedule. Thank y'all so much. And yeah, I'll see y'all back on this channel, twitch.tv/Beading Dream, tomorrow evening for Freeform Friday, where I will finish this ring. Thank y'all so much. Take care. Bye.